U-turn friends, Stacy Tuschl is on to the show today, and I'm so excited about that. If you don't know who she is, she's a best-selling author, she's a speaker, she is the owner of multiple seven-figure companies, and she's the creator of the Well-Oiled Operations. She helps small business owners get more customers in the door, more profit in their pockets, more happiness in their home. And I was just on her podcast, also under the same name, Well-Oiled Operations. And today I'm really excited to talk to her about really scaling your business. So whether you have a side hustle and you want to really bring it full time, or you have something you're doing right now, but you're kind of the every person, you're wearing every single hat, let's get into how to stop being the linchpin of your business. Let's get you out there and bigger and more than ever before. So Stacy, hi, thank you for coming on.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This is everything you said. I'm like, yes, let's get into it. I love this conversation.
I feel like scaling a business can mean so many things, right? Like
Mhm.
it can be about hiring the right team. It could be about getting better contracts so that you don't have scope issues with customers.
Yeah.
It could be about fixing your profit margin. It could be about, having better offers, like
Yeah.
new offers. So
Yeah.
when I think about scaling, though, I think about money. I think
Yeah.
about more money coming in, more impact going out. And I think about the biggest question most people are probably wondering just sitting here is how do we get more leads? How do we make more
Yeah.
money? How do we
Yeah.
make it happen? So yeah, I want to go back to a moment in time with you of when did you start to really see business cranking and really start to get a
Mm.
sense of like, I'm really good at scaling stuff?
Yeah. So I have two businesses. My first business is actually in like the children's dance music acting space. So I started scaling that. I wasn't even marketing and we just kept attracting. So we went from 17 kids to 100 kids within 3 years. And that's what made me think, okay, maybe I have a business. So I've actually always been really good at scaling. And I say scaling with little air quotes here
Yeah.
because yeah, scaling revenue. However, you can make your life a nightmare when you scale with more leads and more sales and you don't have a solid back end.
Yeah.
So sometimes getting bigger, right? Like they say, like more money, more problems. Yeah, when you're doing it wrong, it absolutely can be more problems, more headaches, things like that. So I think for me, the reason we can grow so fast is because we are very product focused. So when I wasn't marketing, because I didn't even know what marketing was and I had no idea what I was building, the product was speaking for itself. And I was building people that were buying to become my ambassadors without even realizing it. They were telling other people and it started to grow and scale. So I think a lot of people don't start with product. They think marketing and sales. How do I scale that? But if you scale
Mhm.
marketing and sales and you don't have a great product, you're just going to get one time buyers. And it's actually harder to scale because you want those people coming back for repeat.
Yeah, okay. I love that you're talking about that because people being an ambassador to your brand doesn't just have to mean that they buy more stuff, right? It could mean that they give you testimonials, that they
Yeah.
refer you clients. So I'd love to even just put a lynch, like
Yeah.
a pin right there. How do people ask for testimonials? How do people, I think especially in my business at Wise Whisper, people who hire us to ghostwrite their book, it's incredibly confidential, right? Like they don't
Yeah.
want that out there. And same thing with TEDx talks. We, craft so many of them. It's like people, that's their talk, right? So
Yeah.
I think people live and work in dicier industries where it's like, okay, well, it is vulnerable for people to be a testimonial. So curious, and it feels
Yeah.
vulnerable as a business to, even if somebody's happy to be like,
Yes.
give me a referral too, because
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
are paying businesses for their work and we're not paying our clients to get out there and put their time or that half-hour phone call into bringing us
Yeah.
more business. So I just
Yeah.
feel like this is a great topic.
Yes. So, first, you are not entitled to a referral or a review, right? That is something we have to understand. You are not like they aren't paying you and then they have to give you this, right? So, I love that you brought that up. So, first, we don't ask everybody for those things. We ask the right people at the right time. So, there's a couple things I can do, and we have some of this automated, right? So, we may send out a survey that's asking you, hey, you've been with us for 2 weeks, right? What are your thoughts or what have you seen? Or right. And it could be that if you rate us a 5 out of 5 or a 4 out of 5, we immediately ask you for a review and a very quick way to do that. If it's a 1, 2, or 3, it's not going to ask for a review because we don't want negative reviews.
Yeah.
We don't want to prompt it. But now my customer success person can go, hey, Ashley, I saw your review. Tell me what's going on. This is not what we are like. We aren't okay with you having a 1-star experience. So what's going on and how can we get that to a 5-star? So
Yeah.
I can even turn around an angry customer by seeing that. But then the ones that are saying, hey, this is great, now we might ask. So there's a couple things you want to think about, right? It's kind of like when a waiter sets down the food and walks away and comes back and you haven't even had a bite and they're like, how's the food? You're like,
Right.
I'm still cutting. I don't know, right? There's a time when you've had a couple bites, right? To be able to now ask that. Because if you come back when it's over, it's too late. Like the
Right.
experience is done. If I hated it, there's not much you can do about it. So you've got to get the timing right. So whatever it is you sell, you want to ask yourself, what is the result they're coming for? And what would be a kind of like a moment where you realize, wow, they just got part of that. They're on a high, right? They've actually experienced something that they can shout out and share. So I think
Yeah.
that's a big one too, is like just defining what that moment looks like, but also not publicly just asking anybody, right? We're very specific on who we're asking.
Yeah, that's a great I love that so much, and I feel like, it's interesting, one of the biggest reasons I read people refund is not because of the product, but because of their customer experience, and
Yes.
it's so interesting because when I started Wise Whisper Agency, it was just me, and I was so product focused, I'm like, "I want anybody to come in to walk in with the best talk of their life."
Yeah.
But operations isn't my strong suit, so before I was able to hire a chief operations officer sort of person, it was
Yeah.
dicey because I'm just like, "Ooh, I'm not good at logistics and
Yeah.
crossing T's and dotting I's. That's not my gift." And so, it was so interesting for me if a customer was unhappy about operations, which was rare, but it happened. And I remember thinking, "Come on, you have the best talk ever." But
Yeah.
that's just not
It's
how
not.
customer service. Yeah.
Yeah, and it really is like we have to like my idea or my thoughts are really like leaning into excellence in everywhere, right? So excellence in the product, but like you just said, excellence in the experience. You can't have one and think they're going to rave about you. You really need to have both. And I think today, nobody is raving about good businesses. No one is raving about getting what they expected. You have to go above and beyond. You have to have the surprise and delight moments, the unexpected moments for them to shout you out and share. A great example is I somehow booked two flights, two tickets on the same flight. Okay. I have no idea how I did that. I clearly forgot I bought it again. I get to the airport and they're like, we've got you down for 2 seats. Did you really want 2 seats? I'm like, no. So the company, the airline, says to me, no problem. Let's refund you the most expensive flight right now. Like most people don't do that. It's my fault, right? I am the problem here. I'm the unorganized one that did that. And if they were going to reimburse, I actually would have thought they would have reimbursed like the cheaper flight, right? But no, they went above and beyond. So what are the unexpected moments you can give and serve so that people are raving about you without even you asking?
Hmm. That's a really powerful point. Like people keep thinking, how do we get people to do this? How do we
Yeah.
ask them to do it? But it's like, just be amazing and people talk about you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about scaling too fast.
Okay. Mhm.
I love this topic because people don't get it, but it is mo money, mo problems. Like
Yeah.
if you don't scale carefully, what are some of the um T's to cross and I's to dot when it
Yeah.
comes to, so let's say you have a small online course and you have a small team around it and your ads are performing and you're like, wait a minute, I can spend instead of $50 a day, $500 a day.
Yeah.
Let's 10x.
Yeah.
What are some things that go through your mind before you 10x?
Yeah. So first, you have to be careful. If you don't believe that scaling too fast is a problem, like that is something I really want to caution you with. Um, I'm sure you've seen it, a business where they're taking off, you love it, and they're gone. And you're like, what happened? Where are they? Why are they closing? Sometimes, right, scaling so quickly can actually cause a lot of problems that are hard to come back from, right? Your reputation is really hard to come back from. Okay, let's use your example. Let's scale 10x. Well, what is truly your capacity? Can you handle 10 times more customer success, customer service questions? Can you handle 10 times more complaints? Everything 10x's, right? So sometimes we don't even realize, oh, wow, I would have to hire this many more people. If you have a team of 4 and we now need to go to a team of 10, that's a different experience, right? Those
Yeah.
are growing pains that you haven't yet mastered. So I always tell people just like one at a time, right? I have 50, 60 employees, but I didn't hire them all at one time, right? I hired them one at a time. And pretty soon I started to be able to handle 5 employees. And then one day I could handle 10, and then I could, right? But it's like you have to take those steps and really get your footing. So I always talk about there's scaling and there's sustaining.
Yeah.
And sustaining is once you've scaled a little bit, okay, pause for a minute and clean it up, right?
Yeah.
Figure out, where are we broken? What do we need to fix? What are frustrations? Where are clients complaining? What do we need to do to the product? Because maybe the product was great when you were at a certain level. Now that you've scaled, right, the product maybe is getting not as good because you're spread more thin, whatever it is. So let yourself scale, but then pause, sustain, fix. And what it is, sustaining isn't going backwards, it's not plateauing. It's simply taking like the bow and arrow and pulling it back, because pretty soon, as soon as you sustain, man, you can scale again, right? So as we're recording this, like the first 6 months of the year for me, I should say the last year was a big growth year, to the point where I was exhausted. Like I literally
Yeah.
just treading water. Like it was tiring. So for the first 6 months of this year, we had to sustain. We had to figure out, how can we make this more sustainable? How can we get the team up and running? What do we need to do? And then month 7, because of everything we had done for the first 6 months, we were ready for another big jump. So
Right.
allow yourself time to scale, but you do have to rest somewhere in there. You can't just constantly scale.
Yeah, I love that so much. And it's like, it reminds me of this idea that like backing up does not mean backing down. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you need to regulate, you need to get, that's exactly where we are. Our first year in business, we had 50 clients come in.
Mhm.
And this year we could literally get 50 clients in a month and a half if we wanted.
Right. Yeah.
And so we're in a position where it's tempting, right? It's like, oh my gosh, let's just win.
Yeah.
But I spent the past 4 months trialing new writers, signing
Yeah.
off on their work, trialing new creative directors, signing off on their work, weeding through and I cannot imagine if I had 50 customers at once and I realized one of the creative directors that I was trialing on 5 projects
Yeah.
wasn't good. So it's so powerful to be able to step back, and it's hard because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they're fighting for that moment in time where it's the big win. And the thing about the market is the market changes, right? Like something that was working now could stop working in 8 months. Like maybe the time we're in now is the time, and I hate to have that scarcity, but I know it's
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
So it's like win when you can win, but win in a healthy way so you're not damaging things
Yeah.
more than you are, giving.
Yeah.
Okay,
And really know your true capacity, right? At what point are we sold out? Or what point is a waiting list kicking in where we just truly can't handle anymore? And I think like pick that number and play full out till you hit it. But man, when you get close to that number, right? Understand like you put that number in place for a reason. And your worst hire is your reputation with a client that only works with them,
yeah.
right? So you have to be very careful, because you might be great and your business might be great, but if you're hiring so quickly and the people aren't properly trained, if I come in and work with your new hire that's not great, now your reputation is all over town because I'm saying, or over the internet, right? I'm saying, oh yeah, it wasn't that great. It wasn't really what they promised. And that can really hurt you and backfire for years to come.
Yeah, yes. It's interesting because I hear what you're saying, but I also don't want myself, you, people thinking they have to tiptoe to this extent, right? Because the end of the day, our agency, we actually just did not a survey, but we did an internal look at a spreadsheet. And we're
Yeah.
like, okay, of these 50 clients, how many are happy with us?
Mm.
And we found that of the 50, it was like a complete polarizing thing. Like I think it was 47 of them thought we were like 10 out of 10 writers.
Yeah.
Like the work they got they said this was the best work we've ever seen, right?
Yeah.
But there were 3 that thought our work was bad and we needed to like go through a scope thing and like rework the talk with them. And obviously I have my opinions, right? Because I
Yeah.
like to think everything we do is excellent.
Yeah.
My opinion, sometimes I'm looking at that one client that's unhappy thinking, well, you're all over the place. You wanted to talk about this and now you want to talk about that. Like, how is it supposed to be good if you're everywhere?
Yeah.
But, and then we saw that 4 clients on top of those 3 had scope issues. So
Okay.
that was where we could plug the gaps. But those
1000%.
right, like, oh, okay, is it a scope issue or is it that we need to widen our scope and offer more
Yeah.
to actually get the job done in a way that pleases the client?
Yep.
And it's this and another thing I've learned is my scope with my contractors or my, a lot of our employees started as contractors. My scope with contractors might be wider
Hmm.
than the scope I'm putting them on with clients. So for example, if a client gets 3 calls with us, I might scope the writer for up to 4 calls on the project.
Hmm.
Always give your business a little more wiggle room
Yeah.
to please the client with your contractors, right? Or else you're having scope issues left, right, and center.
Yeah.
What have you learned about, because I'm thinking about those 3 clients that honestly, Stacy, like we rewrote their projects and I think a lot of them ended up, of the 3, there's probably 2 that ended up happy and one that probably still
Yeah.
thinks we're not amazing at all.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking 1 out of 50 that thinks we're not great. Awesome. We're crushing it. That's like
Yeah.
2 to 5%. Like that's really impressive. But what you're saying here really stands for a lot of people. And I think you're really sniffing on what some people's nightmare is in business is
Yeah.
one customer that hates them. So how do we regulate that thought as well, Stacy? Because I don't want people to think, oh, I need to course correct for this one negative Nancy.
Yeah. Great point. So, first of all, when I look at a negative review, a negative comment, anything, there's a couple questions that go through my mind. Number one, was this our ideal client? Sometimes we have sold somebody we should not have sold, and there's just no way they can get the experience or the outcome we're looking for. So we have to go back and say, was this a marketing? Like, are we off in our marketing? Are we off in our sales? Do we need to get more crystal clear? So every year we actually ask ourselves, is our ideal client still this exact person? Do we need to up level him or her, right? Are we still like, who's getting the best results in our program? So we actually look at all of our testimonials and we profile them. So
Mm,
all of a sudden we're like, oh, our most successful clients have XYZ. So then we turn our marketing into that information. So we start attracting people that can get the best results. So I believe you will always have negative reviews and people saying not great things. It should be a small percentage, but they will be there. If you are truly scaling, you are way too big to please everybody. If you
yeah.
have never had a negative review or a negative complaint, it tells me you're just not that big, right? You just haven't had the volume because every good book, every amazing movie, right, has somebody who hates it.
Yeah.
So
100%.
it's a given. But I also don't want to say, oh, she was just crazy. That's why I got the negative review. I'm like,
Right.
listen, maybe she's a little crazy, but what can we learn from this? Like, where can we take some fault so we can impact it and change it moving forward, right?
Yeah.
But I do think it is inevitable. Like, don't, shame yourself when you get that one person spreading gossip on the internet, because it's going to happen for sure.
Yeah. 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 It kind of reminds me of like that person in the dating pool that's like, all my exes are so crazy. It's like, yo, that's a red flag. You
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Okay. So what would you recommend when there is like a troll situation and it really is pretty severe and you are awesome and you have one person
Yeah.
that's just gone rogue? Obviously, you can't control people, but do you have any tips for people who are listening and worried about this?
Yeah. So it is important to focus on testimonials, reviews. Where are you putting those, right? In an online business, I have both brick and mortar and an online. It's a little harder online. So we use a site called Trustpilot, right? Because you can't use Google My Business if you don't have a real physical location. So our goal is to have, Trustpilot and to continuously ask current clients to leave a review, right? So maybe there's one bad one, but there's 60 really good ones. Okay.
Yeah.
That is very normal. And that should make most people feel good that a public website that anybody can post on, there's only one out of maybe 60. That's not bad, right? When there's 6 reviews and 5 are not great, right? That is when you have to be really concerned and you should be focusing on giving a better experience and then getting those people to leave honest reviews. So we have a few things that we've done. We use Trustpilot. We also have our own landing page, just a simple one-page website where we have screenshotted people's comments and things like that. So one thing that's really cool is if people don't want to put their name on something, you can still screenshot the Facebook group or wherever they're posting and blur out their photo and blur out their name and still post it, right? So that is something you could do. Now, it is definitely more credible to have a real image with a real name, but not everybody can do that. Okay. So that's something to consider. I also have done things where I have gifted in exchange for people's time and their honest review. Like, let's say I say, hey, would you jump on camera with me? I want to interview you about your experience, 5-10 minutes, and I'll stick around and I'll gift you X. So, for instance, if I'm going to ask you for 10 minutes of your time, I might stay for 10 minutes and say, pick my brain, ask me whatever you want. I'm happy to coach you. Right.
Yeah.
And I say to them before, I am not trying to get you just to say all these amazing things. Please do not even jump on this if you don't truly believe we have a great offer, right? So there's a lot of ways you can start to build that yourself.
Yeah.
When somebody says to me, well, what kind of experience have people had? We actually created a wins brochure. It's 40 pages of client stories. I mean, we want to go so extreme so that when you read the one bad review about me, right? I have got so much more for you to go, okay, this looks pretty legit. And
Yeah.
that's what you need to do.
Yeah, I love it so much. It's really a job in and of itself to collect that information, post
It
that
is.
information, and curate. And that's the thing with scaling, right? It's like all of these things are really important jobs, and that's why we need those pregnant pauses of
Yeah.
moments in time. Okay, so I'm listening to you talk a lot about scaling from a perspective like customer relationships
Yeah.
and operations. Let's talk about literal lead generation, like
Yeah.
money coming in. Um, what are some of your favorite ways, organic and paid,
Yeah.
to bring leads or skyrocket your leads? Um, yeah, and maybe just like offers that you think have been really cool that you've done that
Yeah.
maybe you have a story of how you scaled them, anything like that for everybody listening.
Yes. So even though I am like the operations girl, I am a marketer. I love marketing. It is the job that I have kept on my plate the longest in both of my businesses. I actually, that's what my bachelor's degree is in, is marketing. It's just like that is where I live and breathe. So this is my jam for sure. I think the biggest thing to do is to throw spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. And when you find a winner, you stay there. So for me, inside of Well Oiled Operations, I have one main funnel, and that funnel is a live masterclass. I have done the exact same masterclass every single week for 2 years. That
Mm,
funnel has scaled us to several million a year. So, what a lot of people do, a lot of business owners, is they just build, throw it out there, get the results, something new. And for me, I get to fix every single week the data. So I am getting so much stronger. Like, think about it. I have done the same funnel 100 times. Most people have done their funnel, marketing funnel, once or twice. So do you see how I can get so much stronger because that's all I'm focusing on? It's all I'm doing. So for me, my strategy right now is we are pretty strong on Instagram.
yeah.
And then that's our organic channel. We run paid ads on organic Instagram, or I'm sorry, we run paid ads on Facebook and Instagram. So that's growing it. But basically, all of my content, all of my reels are little bite size information that then is like comment below if you want whatever template or spreadsheet. And then we've got like a many chat automation behind the scenes. And all of that is getting you to my live masterclass. And that is the one funnel that just keeps producing over and over and over. And all I work on is how do I make it better? It's not that I'm not working on marketing anymore. It's no, I get to do the nitpicky things that most people don't have time for or don't even think about.
I love what you're sharing because it's kind of with my own ethos of like going deep and not
Yeah.
always going so wide with marketing. So, you have one masterclass on your website. I saw it about scaling
Yeah.
your business. So
Yeah.
now everybody listening, you can check that out to learn how to scale your business and to see how she's scaling
Yeah.
hers, which is really fun. And at the end of, I'm guessing it's like an hour masterclass,
Yeah.
about your services, about you, and with real tips that really help people
Yes.
out. And then at the
Yeah.
end, you're inviting people maybe onto a sales call or to buy a product. Is that
Yes.
okay?
So, I mean, we give 45 minutes of just pure gold because I have to get you to one, stay for 45 minutes, and then two, convince you, whoa, this was good. I want to work with her. Right.
Yeah.
So, that is the funnel that is producing a majority of our leads. And they're a pretty qualified lead because they signed up for the thing that we do and stayed for 45 minutes with me before even getting a chance to book that call.
And the masterclass, did you say it's live or it's an automated?
Live.
Wow.
So I do it once a week live. At some point I will switch to not have it be live. I mean, we make a couple $100,000 a webinar.
Yeah.
So for me, when people are like, why do you still do that? I'm like, listen, I only have to work an hour a week on that masterclass. I could literally show up and never show up again the rest of the week. And my company is just scaling fast. So it has just become like, when I look at where is the best use of my time, there is nothing that pays me more than that 1 hour masterclass.
Yes, that's exactly. I understand
Yeah.
that thinking so deeply.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, powerful. And I love that this reminder, because I feel like as online marketing continues and coaching expands as an
Yeah.
industry, people are like, is it even in to have a podcast anymore? Is it even
Yeah.
in to like do paid ads? I'm like, what are you talking about? Yes, like let's go.
Yes to
First
all.
of all, with podcasts, like look at how many YouTube channels there are. In the past, I think it was like, I'm gonna butcher this statistic, so nobody quote me, but I think it's like there's like 5 million podcasts, but in the past 90 days, only 470,000 have released an episode. So
It's
it's
crazy.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like 470,000 podcasts releasing an episode the past 90 days, or whatever that smaller number is. I
Yeah.
have to verify it. Um, it's crazy because if you think about it, look at YouTube, it's hundreds of millions of
Yes.
channels.
And one of the things we're doing is we are our second channel now that we're going to try to focus on this year is YouTube, because
Mhm.
we already have a podcast. So why would we not just strip it and really put it there? So we are now actually YouTube focused, and that is being stripped for the podcast, because I still see so much potential in podcasting. And now Spotify is doing, like, there's just so much stuff, and YouTube has a podcast channel within YouTube, and it's just not going anywhere. It's just getting stronger and stronger. So I'm a big believer in like having that main piece of content, and then my team just strips and repurposes it everywhere.
Yeah. You know, our conversation's making me think a lot about people who are just starting out. And at the end of the day, it's like starting is really freaking messy. Like we were talking about having that customer that doesn't like you, having bad operations,
Yeah.
scaling too fast. It's so messy when you're starting. You don't know what you don't know, and it's so
Yeah.
hard. But then you figure it out, right? That's the game. That's the cost of admission, is being willing to be messy. And so I would love to hear for someone who's listening right now that maybe they haven't started a business, they're hearing us talk about scaling, they want to do that. They maybe just started to like, put little tiny things in place.
Yeah.
What are some of the best things people can start thinking about or doing to really have a business built to scale?
Yeah. So I am a big believer in finding a model, somebody where you can look up to them and say, I like what they're doing. And I also not only like their business, but I like their lifestyle. So I
Mm,
like to model what's already out there. So my point is, you have to be careful, because if you're modeling somebody that works 7 days a week and you want to build what they're building, it is unrealistic, right? I've interviewed people on my podcast where they admit I worked 100 hours a week to get here. You're like, do I want to sell a business for, a couple 100 million, but I have to work 7 days a week? As a mom, no, I don't. Right now, you might be in a stage where you're like, I'll work 7 hours a week to do it. Great. That is a person you should be modeling. So I'm looking at who's doing what I already want to do, and what do their behaviors look like, right? How are they showing up? What are they doing? So I start to just kind of take those little gems, right, and figure it out. So I would start paying attention on whatever platform you love to be on, and start to look and model the person you want to be. And I think that's probably just a really great place to kind of come back to, what do I want, not what should I want, or what does everybody tell you you should want, right? I think we really have to be conscious of where we want the end game to be.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
And being able to kind of do that step by step breakdown. Okay, so
Yeah.
take me into the moment for everyone to be with you, like magic school bus into Stacy's history
Yeah.
of that moment where you realized, wow, this is going to scale really big.
Mm.
And this is what did you do to get to that moment?
Yeah. I'll talk about the online business. So with Well Oiled, I had this belief actually for a while of like, oh my goodness, I would do my first launch ever made like $60,000. And I mean, I was like blown away. And I thought, oh my goodness, I've made it. Like, this is going to be the thing. And then like next month I made no money.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
So I definitely have had moments, but then I'm like, wait, I'm losing it. Right. And I think for me, I think when I finally like found my voice and found the topic I wanted to talk about, and I knew with operations, it was a whole lot less saturated than everybody talking about marketing or sales or whatever it was, right? I realized like this is me and this is what makes me unique, right? So a lot of business owners, they don't have a big team, right? They could be a solopreneur or just have contractors. I have both of my businesses have dozens and dozens of full-time employees, contractors, you name it. And when I realized like this is what makes me different. This is what makes me unique. And I love talking about this topic. When I started to put out that information, I quickly started to see, wow, this is resonating. So I definitely have had many mini moments. It's been a roller coaster where I can have that moment and then the next day be like, oh, or maybe not. Like, what am I doing? But I just think, this has been 9 years of the compound effect happening
Yeah.
in this business specifically. But
Mm.
I've always known like I have what it takes. And I think
Mm.
that's more important than anything else because for me, I will not give up. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how long it's going to take. I just know I will be successful. If you're wondering, will this be successful? You already are kind of like a little wishy washy going back and forth, and that will impact the way you move forward or what you'll do today. With me, I know it's going to be a success. It's inevitable. I just might not know the moment, right? Now, I do feel today in this moment, the business is like wildly successful. I feel incredible with where we're at. We're at multiple seven figures. We're scaling. I mean, we literally just 5x'd our revenue. Like it was just insane. But like, I still feel like I'm barely scratching the surface,
Yeah.
right? So I can still say like, I think we're going to make it because now my brain is going even bigger. But you do have to recognize those moments and just believe it. And then those actions need to follow that belief.
I also think the question of like, when is it enough comes up, right?
Yeah.
Like, because I actually think about that for my own lifestyle all the time. I'm like, how many dollars do I need
Yeah.
to have invested
Mhm.
where suddenly it's like, do I really need to push harder?
Yeah.
Is this enough? And I feel like it's such a powerful question. How do you work through that with yourself? And
Yeah.
also, there's such a big difference when how many millions of dollars a business is making and how much is going into Stacy's bank account, right? Same with
Yeah.
me.
For
And
sure.
I know that there's so many marketers out there that are like, I made 10 million this year, so work with me. It's like, well, I wish they would say I kept 500K. I kept 2
Yeah. Yeah.
million. Like I want to know that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, can you talk to me a little bit about how do you approach your vision when it comes to business and help other people with that? Because that's a systems matter, right? Like
Yeah.
you
I
create
mean,
systems to back it.
yeah, this has been a journey for me, like not really knowing and then trying to figure out, wait, do I want that? Do I not want that? Do I believe it's possible? And sometimes when I think, I don't really need to push that hard. Maybe I don't really need that. But then I'm like, wait, do I not believe I can do that? So that's why I'm giving myself permission to slow down. So for
Mhm.
me, I'm in a place where financially life is great, but I've also worked 22 years in these businesses. So I've definitely like put in the work. We're good financially. With me, I am so driven. I want the challenge and I want the like to be able to say I'm capable of a $10 million business, of a $30 million business, of a $100 million a year business. So now to me, it's not about the money because truly it's not changing our lifestyle, right? I mean, it's changing our bank account, but it's not changing the way we spend, right?
Right.
So for me, it's about like, what am I capable of and what do I want to build and how much impact do I want to have?
Mhm.
So I think you have to just enjoy the journey. I think if you're working 24/7, I would say put in some good boundaries because I see those bad habits a lot of times with our clients and 20 years in it doesn't change. So what do you want, right? Like me, I work about 40 hours a week. I work when my kids are in school and then at the nighttime, I'm with them. On the weekends, I'm with them. That
Mhm.
feels really good to me, right? So what do you want and how can you give it your all with the time you've given? I
Mm.
I don't picture like some people are like, why do you work 5 days a week? You could probably get down to 3 if you wanted. Like you're well oiled enough. I'm like, I like working and my kids are in school. So what am I doing when I'm home alone, right? I actually really love it. It fuels me. What do you want? Right? Maybe
Mm.
it is working 3 days a week. Maybe it is putting in 6.5 right now because you have the time and you're single with no children. You get to decide what that looks like. That's why I was saying, find that model, find that mentor. How can you build what they're building with the lifestyle you are trying to accomplish as well?
I love that. It's such an important question.
Mhm.
Okay, so we've talked about funnels, we've talked about customer experience. What we haven't talked about is team.
Okay.
And you have such fun thinking. I love being around brains like yours, Stacy, because I love marketing too. Actually, I have a head of marketing, and she's an incredible gift to all of us at my company. But it's been funny and fun and weird for me to let go of some things that I'm really
Yeah.
good at, realizing like, oh, she's just as good as me at this, and
Mhm.
I'm better used other places.
Yeah.
So hiring, finding talent, losing talent,
Yeah.
keeping talent. It's a whole freaking
Yeah.
Macarena. I've
Yeah.
never
It
said that
really is.
before.
And it's one of those skill sets. Like, I don't think being a solopreneur is fun for the sake of you are everything to the business. You can't even take a vacation. If you do take a vacation, you're answering emails or you're having customers who have to wait a week, right? So to me, I want to get out of solopreneurship as fast as possible because even just having an assistant, like having an assistant is going to alleviate you needing being needed 24/7.
Yeah.
So I really do believe we should all at least have one person working with us so we can just breathe a little bit more. But attracting that person, managing that person, trying to keep that person, that is a skill set and a muscle you have to really practice. Like you need to put those reps in to start to build that muscle. And I
Yeah.
will tell you, it's kind of like saying if somebody said to you, like, Facebook ads don't work. That is a false statement. It's just you haven't figured out how to use Facebook ads yet, right? Like they should work for 99% of people. It feels the same way to me when somebody says, I already tried to hire. That was a nightmare. I'm not doing that again. It
Yeah.
just tells me you just don't have that skill set yet, right? And that's okay because what makes us probably really good at business makes us really bad at leading, which is we're the boss. We're the control freak. We have all the ideas. It's my way or the highway, right? So those things do not make sometimes the best leader. We have to learn how to still be the visionary, but then empower other people. So just like Ashley, you mentioned, this marketing director's in here, it takes a skill set to say, okay, I'm going to let her come up with these ideas. Even though Ashley's amazing at marketing, I'm going to
Yeah.
let her shine and I'm going to be okay with it. That takes some time and some patience for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. Okay. There's such a big difference between talking to somebody that says they can do the job and
Yeah.
somebody who can actually do the job. How
Yeah.
how the heck are you finding these people? I have a bunch
Yeah.
of unicorns. I actually made a little meme and texted our group the other day of a bunch of dancing unicorns. I put everybody's face on top of the unicorn's face.
I love it.
But I feel like really lucky and
Yeah.
inspired by them. And to be honest, like I'm lucky. I love what my company's doing. I know
Mhm.
that as I change, maybe I won't have the same life force energy for some of the things we're offering, but
Yeah.
for now I really love them. And it feels really powerful that I'm motivated by my team. I'm motivated by
Yeah.
who I get to hang out with. Like that feels really special. How do we support somebody listening in
Yeah.
starting to seek those people out? I have my own thoughts on it, but curious what
Yeah.
you.
So two things that I would say is one, you need to be the person they want to work for. So
Mm,
I think people forget that when you're interviewing somebody, they're interviewing you as much as you're interviewing them. And I see sometimes business owners just showing up and kind of drilling them, but not selling why you should work here. So people are confused when they turn your offer down and they took somebody else's, right? So you need to be an A player CEO if you want to attract A players to work for you. And that interview process is the first impression. You are dating them and hoping they say yes to you when you go to propose, right? So that's number one. Number two is we don't hire anybody without doing a sample project. It's a paid sample project. So we actually start our relationship kind of in the engagement stage, right? Where we're proposing and we're asking, are you interested in doing a 10-hour, 5 to 10 hours next week of a paid project? So this will start to show you, are they just talk or are they as good as they said they are? So what if we were to start a relationship together this week and you hired me, what would you give me to do, right? Like now you're giving me that in our first week, but we know that there's an end, right? So when I offer that sample project, I tell them, listen, We are down to our top 2 or 3 favorites. You are one of them. We would invite you to do this. It's paid. And then at the end of the week, we will review the projects and we will be selecting one of you. So what's
Mm,
amazing is I think, most business owners, like we're nice. We don't want to fire. It's hard. We don't want to have confrontation.
yeah.
So we bring them on and they're not a good fit and we know it, but we don't fire them and we let them stay. What's
Mm,
nice is they know I could be let go already technically in 7 days, right? And at the end of the week, it's not over, right? This is just an interview process. So I see business owners feeling a lot better ending the relationship after a sample project than actually, bringing them onto the team. So I just had somebody on my team that was interviewing. She's like, okay, I think I have my winner, but I'm going to give 2 of them the sample project. And the one that wasn't winning won after the sample project because the sample project just showed us like, look at the quality of this person's work. Maybe they were nervous in the interview. Maybe they're not great with conversation, but their work is impeccable. That is something you really want to make sure you're giving them an opportunity to show you and shine.
It's interesting too, because there's such a difference between competence and culture, right?
Yeah.
Like that's my problem is like sometimes I've brought in people that I'm like, oh, you've got the gift, especially with writers. Let me tell you,
Mhm.
managing creatives on the
Yeah.
level of par that these people are on in my team, it's like managing the wind. Like
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
are creatives. They are
Yeah.
brilliant at 4 in the morning. They are brilliant at 1 at night. Like they are just all over the place. And
Mhm.
bless, and so I've learned there's such a big difference between like, can you do the job, but can you fit with us? And I found that one of the
Yeah.
most cancerous hires is the one that has a bad attitude, that thinks everything is a big lift. And they just don't have that can-do energy. I
Mhm.
also realize one of my core values is speed. And
Yes.
my marketing girl, she's like Speedy Gonzalez. Like I tell her all the time, and her name's Ashley too, which is so funny.
Nice.
I'm like, Ash, we're both Geminis, we're both Ashleys, we both like speed, marketing
Mhm.
and sprinkles cupcakes, and off we go. And
Yeah.
so I just told her, I said, Ash, the word of the month for you is precision. Like
Mm.
that's your word of your month because you're so fast, you're just like me, and
Yeah.
we need to be precise. So
Yeah.
it's interesting because, but all that said, I would
Yeah.
rather somebody speedy than somebody that needs like 3
Mhm.
business days to reply as a contractor to an email, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how does somebody decide what is a culture fit for them? What are some guiding lights for you to make those
Yeah.
decisions?
Yeah. So getting clear on your company values. So you value speed. What else do you value? And sometimes that's not an easy question to ask yourself. But what people can answer very quickly is what frustrates you? What do you dislike? Right.
Yeah.
And you would say, I hate when people are slow or I hate when people are late. Okay. So you value speed, right? You value, right. So we start to find these words, these phrases. And it can be as simple as that. You don't have to make them pretty and sound amazing. It's just like, what are you upset about? Like, who was the last person on your team that did something that you didn't like? And what did they do? And what is the word or phrase that they did? Okay. So when you're clear on what those values are, ask yourself, what are questions or things that I could have them do in the sample project to show me? So, for
Mm,
instance, if I were one of the things I like to do is I give people, let's say if I say it's a 5 hour project or a 10-hour project, I will purposely give you more work than you're ever going to be able to do. And I tell them that there's about 10 hours worth of work here. I want you to hard stop at 5 hours. Do not go past it. Okay. So they'll start working on the project, they stop at hour 5. What's amazing is if you give 2 sample projects, you can actually see how fast somebody was and what they got out of it, right? So, what I've learned the hard way is somebody won in the sample project before we ever did this timing thing. But then I realized she's a perfectionist and she takes forever to do anything. And what I probably thought was a 5 hour, 10-hour sample project, she probably did 30 hours that week. And that's why it
mm,
was so good. And she won. And honestly, she didn't make it past a few months because we were like,
yeah.
oh my goodness, she's so slow. So, what can you do to start to assess your values in an interview or a sample project? And like in an interview, if you value being a team player, you could say, here's a scenario. You've got work to get done and you've got a deadline today at 5 and your coworker reaches out and asks you XYZ. What do you do? You're going to
Mm,
hear if they're like, okay, well, I would quickly jump on Zoom and I would help them do XYZ. And then I would immediately go to my project or I'd message you to, you'll hear how they do it. Or they'll say, well, if you have a deadline and I'm not going to finish it, I have to get my work done first. Like they'll tell you how they think.
Right.
And you're going to quickly realize like, that is not our culture. We no, like we
Yeah.
would never do that, right? So you're going to start to see like who they are naturally.
Yeah. Yes. This has been such a fun conversation. What have I not asked you about
Oh my
business
goodness.
modeling that you're like, come on, you got to tell everybody? Or is there anything? Because I've really asked you a lot of questions I love
Yeah.
got covered.
Well, our framework is the plan, the people, the process. We
Okay.
definitely covered people. We definitely covered process. The plan, I think, is a lot of just you getting clear, right? Like we said before, what do you want? Writing it on paper. One of the things we do, I love that you brought up the profit margin. We're like, you can't just say revenue number. Like that does nothing for me, right? So
Yeah.
we actually like make our clients write down what's your revenue goal and what's the profit margin. Like immediately, we don't ever even say the word revenue without saying with a 10% profit margin, with a 20% profit margin. And from there, we look at, okay, let's figure out the math. So what does that mean? Right? What is our best seller? What are we selling this year? And how many units of that do we need to sell? Right. And now it's really easy. If you're like, I want $1 million business, I want, 300,000 left over. Okay. Well, we only get 700,000 to spend. So let's start to pre-spend our dollars. So we know we're going to end up where we want to end up. So I think a lot of people either don't know numbers or don't goal set, or they only goal set. And goal setting is just saying, I want $1 million business next year. Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately, we need to strategize, like, right? There's a difference between goal setting and strategically planning.
Yeah.
And I plan nonstop. I mean, I'm planning annual and then I'm breaking down quarterly and then I'm breaking down the monthly and then the weekly and then today. And I mean, most of my day is just like planning and getting all the wheels in motion. I don't think a lot of people do that with the prep work.
Do you do personality tests with your team or with yourself? Like, I'm
We do.
curious which ones you love.
Oh man. I mean, for me, we do a couple. So with our team, we do something called predictable success, and
Okay.
it just explains their working personality. Like, is this girl an ideas person? Are they a processor? Do you like systems? Like, what do they like? And it's not that there's a bad personality. It's just like that might not be great for social media if I need an executor and they're only visionary, right? Like they're gonna
Mm.
come up with ideas, but they're not gonna do anything. So
Mm.
that's a good one I like. I mean, we use disc, like there's just a lot of different ones that we've used. And it really is helpful to figure out how do I work with this person or what role would they be in. We're actually creating our own right now that
Oh,
goes with our
fun.
framework because what happens is when you find out who this person is in the business, how do you lead them? How do you manage them, right? Like what do your conversations look like? Are they a details person or are they big picture, right? Like what do they need? It's really important to understand who you're working with.
Yeah, I love that. It's so funny because I just took my Colby test, my Colby A assessment, and I just told
Okay.
my team, hey, can you guys take this and send me your
Yeah.
score? And it's so funny. It feels like I'm playing Tetris with my score in there. So those of you who
Mhm.
haven't seen Colby, it's like a bunch of bars. It looks like gas tanks and how full they are. And my score is 3692. And the first number is about how much you look for details. Like how much details do you want before you make it?
Yeah.
I'm a 3, 8 out of 10.
Nice.
Right. So I just am like, give me the essence, give me the key points and
Yeah.
make the decision, right? The
Mhm.
next number is all about systems, right? Like how much do you rely on, create, want to have systems? I'm a 6. That means I'm more likely to take a system that has already proven itself to work and overlay it versus create my own system. You're
Yeah.
probably a higher number,
Yeah.
Stacy.
Yeah. And it really does show you, okay, if that's who I am, then my right hand needs to be the opposite of me. We don't need two people, right, that
Exactly.
look just like me. We need to find somebody that's going to fill in the gaps of who I am. So I always said there's not a wrong personality. Whenever I ask somebody to take it, I'm like, listen, there is a spot for you somewhere. We just have to figure out where is the best spot for you.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Like even talking about the Colby, the third number is the quick start. It's the entrepreneur number. It's how much
Yeah.
innovation you have, how much shiny object syndrome, how much like ideas you have.
Mm.
I'm a 10, and my marketing girl is a 2.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's like she executes. All of her numbers are execution, and all my numbers are ideas. So
Yeah.
I think it's powerful not to live by these tests, but to use them. So I think it's fun to
Yeah.
hear that you're using
Yeah.
them. Anything else about plans that you would want people to know, profit margins before we go?
Yeah, I would say just a simple plan is always going to be a more scalable plan. So usually, especially because most business owners are visionaries. They're ideas people. Like 90% of us, that's who we are, right? So we don't have a lack of ideas. We don't have a lack of things we want to get done for the next 12 months. So usually when people come to me, there's just too much on their plate. So they're going to be mediocre at the end of a lot of those projects versus really going deep and nailing it. So that's why, like I said, I only have one funnel, but we go so deep and we nail it and it works really, really well, right? Instagram's been our one platform. We go
Yeah.
deep. We've nailed it. It works really, really well for us, right? You have to master before you diversify. I
Yeah.
think we've been taught diversify, don't put your eggs in one basket. But you're not, if you haven't mastered it yet, diversifying isn't going to be helpful.
Right. I love that so much. And again, you're such a, there's so many women in my life that are so powerful lately. And I've been hearing them time and time again be like, I went all the way in on this one thing. I went into cave girl mode and I came out and now it's crushing it. And so it's
Yeah.
just like, you're really highlighting the importance of focus.
Yeah, slowing down to speed up. Like I am a fast person. I have a million ideas, but the best thing that I've learned is like how to just like hyper focus, get it done and play full out.
I love it so much. Where can everybody find you? I know if they
Yeah.
head to stacytuschl.com, which we're going to put in your show notes, you guys can check out her training that she talked about.
Yeah.
So what else would be the best way to connect with you?
So Instagram at Stacy Tuschl or YouTube at Stacy Tuschl. Those are the two places we are just pumping out a lot of content. So if any of this was resonating, for sure, to actually go check out the actual free masterclass, it is welloiledoperations.com/class. But really, I would say any one of those places, there is an abundant amount of content and trainings and just things to help you streamline and scale.
Thank you so much again for coming on to the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.